Is it me? Am I the drama? I don't think I'm the drama. Maybe I am. Am I the villain? I don't think I'm the villain.
Hey guys, it's your girl Stephy Kiss, and this is the Am I the Problem podcast. Whew, it's been a long time since I've been behind the mic, but welcome to Am I the Problem? Because what the fuck? Shout out to Iman for that tagline. She did her big one with that one. But you heard it right. Me, Steffi Kiss, previous host of Do I Look Fat and Autism Mommy. I've produced a bunch of your favorite podcasts in these past 4 years. I am coming out with my show, Am I the Problem? Where it's all about accountability, self reflection, and transformation. Yes, I am about to be 40 years old and I'm literally asking myself, am I the problem? Because what the fuck? But I feel like this is something a lot of people can relate to. People think you're supposed to have it all together by the time you're 40. And let me tell you something, everyone I know who is approaching this age still has no idea what the hell is going on half the time. But let's get into the show. So, if this is your first time here, again, my name is Steffi Kiss, and this is the Am I the Problem podcast. Thank you so much for tuning in today. This is a podcast where we dive deep into self accountability, reflection, transformation, all the things, right? And I figured that releasing this during Scorpio season was the perfect time because Scorpio season is all about self reflection and transformation, diving deep, right? Getting into the nitty gritty of all the things. And that is what this podcast is about. Before we get into the episode, if you are watching this on November 15th when it releases, tonight is my Baddie Witch link up. I host a bi-monthly link up during the new moon and the full moon where we talk about how the moon is transiting our charts. I do a group guided meditation. We talk about things and everything. If you want to sign up, the link is down below. If you have no idea what I'm talking about, stay tuned because we're going to get into all of that. But yes, that is tonight, 8:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. This is completely free for my tribe. A group of like-minded individuals come together and just it's like a little group therapy session. We talk about what's going on in our lives. I share what's going on in my life, and let me tell you, it's been a lot, hence the podcast, okay? But let's just get into the show. Before we get into the nitty gritty of the show, I just wanted to get into a little background of how Am I the Problem came to be, okay? Picture this. You're driving down I 95. You're about 1 hour into a 10-hour drive from Atlanta to Port St. Lucie, Florida. Okay? About 2 weeks ago, you lost a very close friend. You basically quit your job and you had just turned 39. Okay? This is the last year of your 30s. You don't really have a place of your own, the place where you're living. You just got a text message stating that you were going to be evicted as of January 1st. Okay? 39 years old, don't have a place to live, don't have a job, don't have a group of friends. And you've come to realize that the best scenario for your son who is on the spectrum is to go live with his father. That's a lot. And like I said, I was 1 hour into a 10-hour drive, and the rest of those 9 hours, all I can think about was, am I the problem? Because clearly everything is happening to me, right? What where does my contribution lie in these scenarios? Where did I contribute to what was going on, what was happening to me? Now, in retrospect, some of those things were the best things that could have happened to me. I was stuck giving so much of myself that I forgot about myself in a couple of areas in my life. I wasn't the best mother that I could be because I lost myself. And I feel like everything that happened during that time was literally God clearing my path from things that no longer served me because God knew that I wasn't going to clear the path myself. I just wasn't. So, am I the problem came to be because I kept literally asking myself as I was going through all of these different scenarios that hit me all at once. And the common denominator was me. So, how was I the problem? How am I being accountable? How can I be accountable to myself so that I can grow and learn from this and be my best self and put my best foot forward, right? And within that time, I felt like this was a topic that I wanted to discuss with you all because I know if I'm going through stuff like this, now not to say that y'all are going through everything I went through, because Lord, no job, no friends, no house. I pray that y'all ain't going through what I went through at that point. But I know that y'all are going through something. And in order to get through it, you have to learn from it. And to learn from it, the only way to do that is to be accountable. Where did you contribute to the situation? So let's just get into it. I wanted to start off and give you a little background about me. So I started my podcast journey back in 2020. I was working in the medical field. It was literally the beginning of the pandemic. I lived in New York City, so I was in like ground zero, and not the 9/11 type of ground zero, but the pandemic ground zero, right? I was an essential worker. I was going to work during April, May, June, July. Stephanie was on that train. Stephanie was walking down Park Avenue and it was looking like I Am Legend, okay? And I said, you know what? Fuck this. I quit my job. I stood home with my son, who I said was on the spectrum, if you do not know. And I ended up packing everything I owned and moving down to Florida. Literally upshifted my life. When I moved down to Florida, I no longer resonated with the Do I Look Fat podcast, which I started in May of 2020. Now, the Do I Look Fat podcast was all about self-love, self-appreciation, body appreciation, loving yourself, understanding yourself, accepting yourself. And I feel like I had grown from that. I had worked on that podcast for about a year. There are over 100 episodes. And I feel like I got to the point where I did accept myself. I did accept my body. I did accept what I look like. And it helped me grow in that regard. So when I moved down to Florida, I basically was alone. It was just me and my kid. And I wanted to share some information about what it was to be an autism mother. He was 12 at the time. So I had basically been on the journey of being an autism parent for about 10 years at that point. And I had learned a lot. I had figured out how to maneuver. And I wanted to share what it was like, not only being an autism mother, as in caring for my kid, but also how to care for myself during that time. So, Do I Look Fat was all about loving myself. Autism Mommy was all about continuing to care for myself while also caring for my child, right? And I did that for a little while, and then I became a full-blown podcast producer for other podcasts. Now, I'm not gonna name the podcasts that I worked on, but some of them might be your favorite podcasts, and you may have found me through them. And shout out to you if you're here right now. But I basically put in everything that I've learned from producing the first two podcasts that I had put out into helping others get their ideas and their thoughts and their messages out to the world. And my message fell to the wayside. And this year I decided to pivot yet again. And I kind of hate that word. Not gonna lie, it's gives me a little bit of PTSD. But I did decide to pivot, swivel, if you will. And I am now doing the Am I the Problem podcast. It's very Gemini stellium of me, okay? And if you don't understand what a Gemini stellium is, don't worry. Stay tuned for future episodes because I'm going to get into all of that, okay? So, back to the present, when I basically had the breakdown on I-95, I realized my whole life was changing. I'll always be an autism mom or the autism mommy because one, my child will always be on the spectrum. Two, I feel like I myself am a little neurospicy even though I have not been diagnosed. And I just feel like even though I have given, I had let go of the reins a little bit and decided that what was best for him wasn't necessarily to stay with me for multiple reasons. He's a teenage boy. He needs his dad. But also, because I was going through this major transition in my life, I couldn't be the parent that he needed in that moment. So because of that, I decided to transition from autism mommy into Am I the Problem? Because I am now in a point in my life where I am into healing myself, working on myself, making sure that I can be the best mother for Ethan, making sure I can be the best version of myself for the world, whether it's for all my relationships, familial, romantic, platonic, work relationships. I want to be the best person that I can be, and I needed time where I could do that without hindering his process or his progress. And I do feel like a lot of people have asked, where has Ethan been? This is my first time actually telling the public that I no longer have my kid at the moment. And let's make this perfectly clear. He was not taken away from me. I made the decision that the best thing for him in this moment was to be with his father. And it wouldn't be an episode unless Stephanie was crying. So let's just get into the show. Okay? I want to start off each and every episode with an affirmation. Okay. This was something that I took from the Autism Mommy podcast. Now, I recorded 6 episodes of Autism Mommy in the spring that unfortunately will never see the light of day. But I did come up with an amazing show and an outline for that show. And I decided to pull some elements and bring those over to Am I the Problem? Because I do think that they're very important. And one of the segments was Talk to Me Nice. And that is where I share an affirmation with the collective. And it's just something that resonates with me in the moment. And I hope that it'll resonate with you as well. Let's clear the air. Let's clear the emotions out. And today's affirmation is, I release the need to blame others and take full responsibility for my actions. Let me say that one more time. I release the need to blame others and take full responsibility for my actions. And I thought that was very fitting for this first episode because I have a lot to say and I have a lot of stories to share, but I want to make it perfectly clear that I'm not blaming anybody. I am not pointing any fingers, but I am sharing my story. I am very much aware and very much accountable for my actions, for how I reacted in certain situations, and I just feel the need to share this with the collective because it's taught me so much in such a short amount of time that I feel like it can teach you guys as well. Just to let you know that you're not alone. We're all the problem in some way, shape, or form. I had someone ask me recently if I can put a percentage of the amount of times I'm the problem. And I literally said, it varies from situation to situation, like how much of to blame I am. But in every situation, I am at least 20% of the problem because I put myself in that situation. I actively made the choice to be in that situation. So even if I was the one that was done wrong, I chose to be there. So therefore, I am part of the problem, if that makes sense. So let's transition into the topic. And the topic is basically the blame game, right? I feel like it's very easy to place the blame on other people. It's very easy to play victim. And as a Cancer Mars, I feel like it's very easy for me to wallow in what happens to me. It's very easy for me to be very emotional and to react in emotion. And again, I'm going to be referencing a lot of astrology and a lot of my personal birth chart, but stay tuned because we're going to get into all of that. Okay. I have a dedicated segment just to help you guys out because I know you have questions. I still have questions. It is very easy to place the blame on others. It can be a self defense mechanism, it can be projection, or you can be like me, where a lot of the times my problem was a lack of self awareness. And just the fact that I can say now that I lacked self awareness for so long shows growth. And like, yes, I'm patting my own back here because if you lack self awareness, you have no idea that you're not self aware. And I am actively trying to get better when it comes to my own personal self awareness. In the past 39 years of my life, I have found myself in situations where I have fallen out with friends. I have, had bad breakups. I had, disagreements with people, and I've been in situations where they have left me traumatized, right? And it was very easy for me to fall into the blaming others. Like, oh, this wouldn't have happened to me if this person didn't do this or if this person didn't do that. But at the end of the day, the common denominator was me. So asking myself, am I the problem? Because what the fuck is going on? It has to be something that I am doing, something that I am not aware that I am doing. Because I personally think I'm a great person. I'm a hoot. I'm a fun time. I'm a good friend. I I listen. I listen very, very well. Like I said, Gemini stellium, I want all the information. So I love to listen to you. Cancer Mars, Cancer Sun. I don't really want to share much. Sharing for me is hard, but I am a good friend, right? So I think when it comes to actually having the awareness to stop blaming other people, to ask yourself, who is actually the issue here? what is the issue here? And what role did I play in the problem? Because nobody held a gun to my head to be in these friendships. Nobody held a gun to my head to look past the red flags. Nobody held a gun to my head to stay in a job where I wasn't getting paid. Like, nobody was doing any of that to me. It was me putting myself in those situations. And then when things blew up, it's like, oh, well, they didn't do this, they didn't do that. Girl, you didn't have to stay. You didn't have to stay there. You could have left. You could have walked away at any point in time, because the only thing that you can control in this life is yourself. The only thing you can control in this life is who you are around, who you give your access to. That's the only thing you can control. I can't control anybody else. I can't control anybody else's actions. I can't control anybody else's perceptions. I can only control me, what I do, and how I perceive the world. And in that moment, on that 10-hour drive, I decided that I was no longer going to place blame on anybody else, and I was going to hold myself accountable for what was going on in my life. So I wanted to share with you some things that helped me actually do that and hold myself accountable. And the number one thing is journaling. Now, that can be writing things down, or, in 2024, where everybody has carpal tunnel for some reason, maybe you want to voice journal into your voice notes. Or I like to record myself. I have over 12,000 videos in my phone. None of them go on Instagram. None of them go on social media. Yeah, some of them do. People would say I talk a lot on Instagram and I like to talk to myself. Yeah, I do. But there's so much that I don't post, because I've learned that I did have to fall back from posting everything online, right? But I realized that the way for me to actually let it out is to say it out loud. Writing is cool, but I feel like the way I learn is when I write something down, it stays ingrained. And if I'm trying to release something, I need to speak it instead of write it. Writing is something that I want to stay. I want it to stick. But when I speak it out loud, I can say it and I've released it from myself, but I save it so that if I do need to reference it back, like, what the hell was going on in my life on July 17th, 2024? That's the day that it happened, by the way, on my son's 15th birthday. Full circle. Full circle. And I think journaling is a great way to provide yourself reflection and clarity. You can track your patterns. You can set intentions. Like I mentioned, writing things down for me is the best way for me to set my intentions. I just recently, during the Virgo new moon, I set intentions for what I wanted to hold myself accountable for, using the Virgo energy, right? I'm very much trying to accomplish a lot of goals. I started a new job in August in a doctor's office, a cardiology practice, and it just wasn't for me. It wasn't, not necessarily fulfilling, but it just wasn't up to par with who I am as a worker, as somebody who has been in the medical field for 20 years, right? And during that new moon, I said I was going to get a new job. And when I tell you, about a month later, I started a new job in a infertility clinic. And when I say I love this position, I've only been there for like about a week, but I can already tell that the people are more so my speed. I live in Florida now, so it's very important for me to find people who I consider my tribe, and not in a way of spirituality or anything like that, but just people who I can resonate with, who kind of are on the same wavelength as me when it comes to, my morals and things like that. And I feel like when I set those intentions during the new moon, it amplified it and it gave me the push and the drive to get things done. If you want some more witchy tips like that, make sure you join my Patreon, Am I the Problem? We're going to be doing all of that. Like I mentioned in the beginning of this episode, I host a bi-monthly Baddie Witch Link Up, BWLU. Now, if you understand the reference of BWLU, ho, we're here. You and me, I fuck with you. But BWLU is where I like to get witchy. And just as like a side note tangent, I use the word witchy. Yes, I do consider myself to be a witch. I think I come from a long line of witches. And when I say witches, I mean people who are very much spiritually inclined, people who are connected to spirit, whatever that may have looked like for them. I come from a long line of women who are very much connected to their spiritual natures. And we all connected differently, but there was a connection there. And when I say witchy, that's not a religion. I'm not a Satanist. I don't not believe in God. I very much believe in God. It just looks a little bit different for me than it would for a Catholic or a Christian or a Protestant or a Muslim or, it's just my spiritual beliefs are very much internal. In my Patreon, I am going to show how I have intertwined my spirituality with my mental health practices. So I do a lot of journaling. I do a lot of self-reflection. I do a lot of meditation. I work on mind, body, and spirit at the same time. And in my Patreon, I will be sharing some journaling prompts. We will be, meeting up, not necessarily for the Baddie Witch Link Up because that is free to everybody. If you want to join again, that is happening tonight. Make sure you click the link down below. It'll be a safe place, a safe space for people who are like-minded like me, who are looking to get more into spirituality, who are looking to learn more about astrology and numerology, just how all of that relates to you. Because at the end of the day, you can only do better or you can only grow when you learn about yourself, right? So let's just get into my favorite segment, okay? This is my favorite part of the show. I'm very proud of it, okay? It's called Did You Plan It? Did you plan it? Like planet Earth? You get it? It's a pun. I love it because it can also help you plan your life or plan how you want to interact with what is going on in the world, right? A lot of people don't believe in astrology or they don't believe in what it means. And to those people I say not believing in astrology is like not believing in time. And that's not even a good comparison because time is man-made. Before there was calendars, there was astrology. Think about that. It's been around for so long. And if I'm going to put my tinfoil hat on, I feel like it has been put down so much because the powers that be don't want you to understand how powerful you can be if you actually honed into astrology. Now, when I talk about astrology, I'm not talking about like fortune telling or being able to tell the future. I personally do not believe anyone can honestly tell you exactly what's going to happen in your life. I don't believe that. I believe astrology can let you know about yourself deep down inside more than you could even understand. I feel like when you actually learn about astrology, you can figure out more about yourself. You can learn more about yourself. You can hold yourself accountable because you know your patterns, you know your triggers, you know your likes, you know your dislikes, you know how you react to certain things, how when you're vibrating low or you're not in the evolved, sign, or you're not using the evolved version of yourself, you're still in the unevolved. It can give you insight on how to actually do better. So let's do this. Welcome to Did You Planet, the segment where we use the stars to learn more about ourselves and hold ourselves accountable. And I thought it was fitting to start off this first episode with what exactly is the birth chart? I'm going to be talking about different aspects of astrology. I feel like you can talk about astrology forever. It is so deep, it is so intricate, and it grinds my gears when people only talk about your sun sign. Your sun sign, I'm not going to say it's insignificant, but if you think about it, the reason why people don't believe astrology is because sometimes they just don't resonate with their sun sign. But your sun sign isn't all of who you are. I am a Gemini rising. I'm ruled by Mercury. So even though I am a Cancer sun and I am very much emotional, I think that my emotional self comes more from my Cancer Mars than it does my Cancer sun. My actions, my responses, how I argue, all of that, that's the Cancer. That's the Cancer part of me that is quote unquote emotional, and I'm a crybaby and all that. Yeah, yeah, yeah. But that's not only because of my sun sign. So let's get into the birth chart, okay? So the birth chart, which is also called your natal chart, is like a cosmic snapshot of the sky at the time you were born, okay? Which is why it's very important that you know your time of birth and where you were born, because all of that takes place, into the snapshot of the stars. If you've never seen your birth chart, if you don't know what, you know, your signs are, where your planets lie, I will put a link down below for Cafe Astrology. It's very simple. You will need to know your time of birth, your place of birth, and of course your birthday. In order to get it, it's very important because in order to get an accurate birth chart, you need your rising sign. Your rising sign is not a planet. It is where the eastern horizon lies in your chart. So, what sign is the eastern horizon in? That changes about every 2 hours. Okay, so it's very important that you know your specific time of birth so that you can get an accurate reading. And understanding your rising sign or knowing your rising sign sets up your entire house system. Okay, so your birth chart is comprised of signs, planets, and houses. And a good metaphor that I've heard before, I am not taking credit for this at all. I don't know where I've heard it, but I've heard a couple of people actually use this metaphor when discussing your birth chart. So let's say your birth chart is a movie. The signs in your birth chart are the actors. Each actor has, qualities and characteristics that they are known for, right? So let's say, for example, Virgos are known to be very meticulous and very, type A. Sagittarius, for me, I know them as being very much worldly, and they have no hair on their tongue. They are a fire sign and they will tell you about yourself quick. I mentioned Cancers and how they're known to be emotional. Cancer is ruled by the moon. The moon literally rules emotion. Of course, Cancer is going to be emotional, right? And then your planets. So there's 9 planets. Okay, I am a millennial. Pluto is a planet. Another tin hat theory is that I feel like the government or the powers that be decided to say Pluto wasn't a planet so that you can disregard its impact on us. Because as at the time of this recording, Pluto is about to exit Capricorn and enter Aquarius. And it's about to be, let me tell you something, it's about to be crazy. Okay. But back to it. Your planets are the actual roles that the actors play, right? So Mercury, for example, is the planet of communication. That's the role. Whatever sign is in that role, they correlate. Does that make sense? So, like, let's say you have a Cancer Mercury, you're going to be an emotional communicator in some type, way, or form, right? Mars is the planet of action, the planet of how you respond, the planet of like fighting and sex and things like that. Cancer Mars is going to be very much emotional, right? And the houses are the settings, right? So, where is this movie taking place? First house is the house of self. It has everything to do with you. Seventh house is the house of relationships, love. 11th house is the house of community, things like that. So you have the sign, which is the actor, the planet, which is the role they play, and the house is the setting of where the movie is taking place, if that makes sense. Okay. So, like I said, understanding your birth chart is so intricate. So intricate. If you want to learn about yourself just a little bit more, a lot of people recommend the big three. I personally recommend your big six. Those are the six inner planets. Uranus, Neptune, Pluto are more of outer planets because they're more generational. So they take their transit around the sun is longer. So it impacts more generationally than it does individually. But the six inner planets, so that's Mercury, Venus, well, the six inner planets are including the sun, because we don't call Earth, we are Earth. The sun, Mercury, Venus, Mars, Saturn, and the moon. Okay? Those are the six celestial beings, the six placements that I would recommend that you look into. If you tune into Am I the Problem, I am going to dive into each and every one of them. Next week, the next episode, I'm actually going to talk about Saturn, because at the time when this is going to be released, Saturn is starting to go direct again, and that can mean a lot of things to a lot of different people. But if you've ever heard of somebody talking about their Saturn return, that is something that is very much impactful as well. So understanding where those planets, who is playing those roles, who is playing the roles of those planets, which sign is playing the roles within those planets, will help you understand why you are the way you are, but how you can overcome any triggers. If I know I am triggered by something and it's exacerbated by my placements, then I can understand it, and maybe I can avoid the triggers, or I can react better within my triggers because I have the knowledge of what it is and why it is that way. So I just wanted to take this time out to thank you so much for tuning into my first episode. It was a little bit all over the place, I'm not gonna lie. I cried, I laughed, I got real witchy with it. Make sure you like and subscribe to the podcast, whether you're watching it on YouTube or you're listening to it on your favorite streaming app. Please rate and review 5 stars. It helps me. Again, I'm doing this all by myself. I'm literally in my room. It's 9:19 at night. I work tomorrow morning and I have a whole setup. and it helps me do what I need to do. This is free for you, but it's not free for me. I love to do it. I love to help and I love to share. But the best thing that you can do to help me continue doing this, if you enjoyed the show, is to rate 5 stars, leave a review. Let me know how much how much you love the show, how much you love the episode, how much it helped you, how much you resonated with the episode. If you leave a comment on YouTube, make sure you subscribe to the channel. Tune in. If you haven't seen the visuals, make sure you check them out. Again, I am doing this all by my lonesome with some Amazon lights and Five Below lights. But I'm getting it done and I'm putting it out there because I feel like this is something that is very much important. If you want a little bit more of the uncensored tea, if you want to get a little bit more witchy or lean into your spirituality, make sure you sign up for the Patreon. If you feel like you want to just support your girl, there is a $3 tier there. There are different tiers, different levels based on your budget. I know, I'm very much aware of how this economy is. So anything that you can help me, whether it is a like, whether it's a comment, whether you're sharing it with a friend, or you're signing up for the Patreon, is very much appreciated. Thank you so much for tuning into today's episode. You can follow me on Instagram, amitheproblem.pod, or my personal Instagram _Stephy Kiss, STEPHYKISS. Thank you so much for tuning in today. I truly appreciate it. Bye.